In today's video, I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. I've read a total of 10 books, and I will be discussing the books I read in the latter half of the month in detail in this video, and books that I read in the beginning of the month will only be mentioned along with their star rating. You can check out my mid-month wrap-up for my thoughts on those books, so let's go ahead and get started. My lowest rated book happens to be A Lady of Persuasion by Tessa. I gave this book 2 stars out of 5 stars. Then I read The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. This is the first in the Bridgerton series, and it's about a duke named Simon Basset who went through some traumatic things as a child, and now as an adult he's emotionally scarred from his past. When he meets Daphne Bridgerton, they agree to fake court each other so that Simon doesn't have to deal with all the matchmaking mothers trying to marry their daughters off, and in turn Daphne will have suitors lining up for her hand because guys want what they can't have. Daphne is all for this plan because all the available men see her as more of a sister than a potential wife. Daphne's overprotective brothers were a bit over the top, and they just needed to take it down a notch. The way Lady Whistledown was tied into the story was great. While Daphne is from this big and loving family, Simon doesn't really have a family per se. The rejection that Simon faces as a kid has shaped him into the man he has become, and it makes his character more dynamic, even if that makes him a brooding hero with lots of issues to sort through. And although he dutifully slides into the role as the Duke of Hastings, he does it with a bitter taste in his mouth. He has a plan that will help him overcome his past. He just needs to stay single in order for it to work. And that's Daphne's cue to come into his life and inadvertently topple his carefully laid plans. The way Simon phrases his words gets him into a jam, so while he's grappling with his past and struggling to find his voice, Daphne doesn't intentionally set out to hurt him, but since she only thinks of herself and both of them fail to come to a compromise, she proceeds to be selfish. She's a great example of what not to do under any circumstances. Like, what was she thinking? Quinn needed to hold Daphne responsible with some sort of consequence, but she doesn't. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5 stars. Then we have The Four Winds by Kristin. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. Then I read Educated by Tara Westover. This is a memoir that takes a look at Tara's life as she grew up in a Mormon household in the mountains of Idaho, and how that experience affected every aspect of her life. Everyone has their own way of looking at things, and Tara's parents had a narrow view of everything. Her dad suffers from extreme paranoia, and her mother follows his lead. As a child, she believed everything her parents told her without question. Tara was taught to fear the government. They didn't allow their children to go to school. They were not to see a doctor under any circumstances, and they stockpiled a bunch of supplies in preparation for the end of the world. This is how Tara grew up, and as she got older, she began to search for a different way to approach life, to widen her knowledge, and to learn about the world, and primarily about history. It was not a good environment to grow up in, and opportunities to learn were scarce. She had to go out of her way and hunt down material to study from. What's truly staggering about this memoir is that she didn't have access to education for a huge majority of her early years up until she was like 17. And when she starts her journey of learning, it's of course a struggle, but she puts a lot of work into it, and she's able to put herself through college and graduate school, which was amazing. She deals with psychological trauma and violence inflicted by her older brother. She has to choose between her life on the mountain with her toxic family or her newfound life that she has created for herself. Her family expects her to live a way that's conducive to their ideals, and they want her to step back in line. But Tara has other ideas. Her curiosity about the world and her place in it takes on a whole new meaning as she discovers her own independence and her own wants and needs. Now we are getting into books I gave 5 stars to. Then we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I gave this book 5 stars out of 5 stars. Then I read The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This is a feminist YA fantasy debut, and it's also the first in a series. It's about a girl named Decca who must take part in this ritual of purity to determine if she is in fact pure. And the way that the priests go about this is by bleeding them to see what color their blood is. Red means you're pure, and gold means you're impure, which will either banish you from the village or kill you via the death mandate. Decca is super nervous about the ceremony. She doesn't know what her fate will be. In order for the story to progress, things have to go badly for a main character before things can even think about running smoothly. That feeling of never belonging overwhelms Decca, so she holds on to the idea of fitting in. When the blood ceremony nears, she thinks about her mother who had just recently passed. I like seeing the progression of Decca's character develop from an obedient, subservient to this empowered girl who's in constant resistance from the in-your-face patriarchal oppression. Decca trains alongside other girls to become warriors known as Aleki. Decca draws from her pain, and together with her friends they become ever more resilient to things thrown their way. The society and the world and the story was unique, and I loved it. I give this book 5 stars out of 5 stars. Then I read The Mother of the Brontes, When Maria Met Patrick by Sharon, Wright. This is a biography that touches upon and examines one of the most obscure figures in literary history, and that is Maria Branwell. Out of the 6 children that she had, 3 of them would go on to write masterpieces. While this book primarily focuses on Maria, we do get to explore the life of her husband Patrick. We see both of their lives unfold and eventually intertwine as their courtship leads to a happy marriage. As they build a life together, we easily see their affection and love develop naturally and effortlessly. This is a lovely backstory that solidifies in my mind just how amazing the life that Maria led. This book was published in 2019, and it reflects upon personal events that took place 200 years ago. We see Maria grow up in luxury and comfort in Penzance. Patrick grew up in an impoverished family in Ireland. His intellect earned him a scholarship to study in England at Cambridge. Maria travels to Yorkshire to help her aunt and uncle run a school. This excursion leads her to Patrick. Their meeting is the start of a very romantic love story. Their immediate attraction to one another made it easy for them to exchange loving letters back and forth. Only Maria's letters have survived all these years, and they are so heartfelt and filled with warmth, and it was so funny hearing her scold him in writing for being so forgetful. The two were compatible in more ways than one. They both loved to read. Maria was a part of a book club, and she read books written by Jane Austen. Maria gave up her life of luxury to be with him. They raised a family and faced challenges together. Since Maria was so well read, she followed her book's advice and had rather safe childbirth experiences. We learned how Patrick's last name transforms from Prunty to Bronte. Someone wrote it down wrong and the name stuck. This was an incredible love story that reveals so much about a well-educated woman who left her mark on the literary world with her 3 genius children, and she was able to spend the latter half of her life with the man she deeply loved. This was a 5-star read for me. Then there's Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read New Spring by Robert Jordan. This is the prequel to the Wheel of Time series, and in this one we are following Moraine in her early years as she is learning and training to become an Aes Sedai. This story also features her meeting Lan, so that was pretty cool. This was a lovely backstory to her character, and I really appreciated it. Some parts are really interesting and other parts are a bit slower, but I still very much enjoyed it. I love seeing Moraine in her element and take on these challenges to gain the shawl. My favorite part was the ending. I gave this book 5 stars out of 5 stars. And then there's Warbreaker by Sanderson. I also gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Alright, that's it for this video. I've read this many books. I think I said it was 10 books. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!